There comes a moment in every life when the mirror no longer reflects who we know we can be. A moment when the weight of yesterday sits heavy on the chest, whispering doubts into the quiet corners of our spirit. But listen closely. Beneath that whisper is another voice, softer yet stronger, calling you forward. It is the voice of becoming. You are not here by accident, and you are not defined by your broken pieces. You are a living testament to survival, to resilience, to the sacred power of rising again. Today is not about fixing what is wrong with you. It is about remembering what is powerful within you. Rebuilding yourself is not an act of desperation. It is an act of courage. And courage, my friends, is how we begin again. Somewhere along the road of living, many of us were taught to believe that struggle means damage, that failure means flaw, that heartbreak means we are somehow less than whole. We learn to label our wounds as weaknesses and our detours as disasters. But I stand before you to say that you are not broken. You have been bent, yes. You have been tested, certainly. You have been stretched beyond what you thought you could bear. But broken, no. What you are experiencing is the sacred, uncomfortable, breathtaking process of becoming. Becoming is not gentle work. It does not always arrive wrapped in celebration and applause. Sometimes it comes disguised as loss. Sometimes it feels like confusion. Sometimes it looks like doors closing in your face or dreams dissolving in your hands. But just because something ends does not mean you have ended. Just because something cracks does not mean it is ruined. When a seed breaks open beneath the soil, we do not call it destruction, we call it growth. And you too are breaking open in order to rise. Rebuilding yourself is not about gluing together shattered pieces to look like who you used to be. It is not about returning to an older, smaller version of yourself just because it feels familiar. Rebuilding is rebirth. It is choosing to stand in the fire of your own truth and allow it to shape you into someone braver. It is deciding that your pain will not be your prison, but your teacher. It is understanding that every scar carries wisdom and every setback carries instruction. You are evolving even on the days when you feel lost, especially on those days. Growth is not loud. It often happens in the quiet moments when you choose not to give up, when you wake up after a night of tears and still decide to try again. That is becoming. When you forgive yourself for what you did not know before you learned it, that is becoming. When you release what no longer honors you, even though it hurts, that is becoming. You are shaping a wiser self through every choice to rise instead of retreat. There is strength being forged in you that your past self could not have imagined. The disappointments you endured are carving depth into your character. The challenges you faced are strengthening muscles you did not know you possessed. And one day, you will look back at this chapter and realize it was not the story of your breaking. It was the story of your transformation. So do not rush the process. Do not curse the season. Trust that you are in the middle of something meaningful. You are not a damaged soul trying to be repaired. You are a powerful spirit in the midst of becoming something greater than you have ever been before. And that, my friends, is not weakness. That is wonder. There is a quiet power that awakens the moment you decide to take responsibility for your own story. Not responsibility wrapped in shame, not responsibility soaked in regret, but a steady, courageous acceptance that says, yes, this is my life. These are my choices. These are my lessons. And from that place, something extraordinary begins to happen. You stop pointing at the world and you start pointing toward your own strength. It is easy to blame the storms for the damage they leave behind. It is easy to name the people who disappointed you, the systems that failed you, the circumstances that limited you. And yes, those things matter. They shape us, they influence us, but they do not have the final word. The moment you decide that your past will inform you but not imprison you, you step into freedom. You reclaim the pen that writes the next chapter. Taking radical responsibility does not mean carrying guilt like a heavy coat. It means recognizing your power. It means saying, I may not have chosen every hardship, but I can choose my response. It means understanding that even when life felt unfair, your future is still within your hands. Ownership is not about self-blame. It is about self-leadership. It is about standing tall in the truth of who you have been while daring to become more. There will be parts of your story that you would rather erase, words you wish you had not spoken, risks you wish you had taken, people you wish you had left sooner or loved better. But denying those chapters does not heal them. Facing them does. When you look honestly at your past without flinching, you gather wisdom, you see patterns, you understand where fear once guided you instead of faith, and with that awareness, you gain the power to choose differently. Your narrative belongs to you, not to those who misunderstood you, not to those who underestimated you, not to the voices that tried to define you by your lowest moments. You are more than your mistakes. You are more than your failures. Those were events, not identities. And when you take responsibility, you separate who you are from what you did. You learn, you grow, you rise. There is something deeply transformative about saying, I am the author here, because authors do not stay stuck in one paragraph. Authors revise. Authors develop their characters. Authors allow tension to create depth. You have that same power. You can decide that the pain you endured will become compassion. You can decide that the rejection you faced will become resilience. You can decide that the silence you suffered will become a voice that speaks with clarity and courage. So stand in your story without shrinking. Claim the lessons. Claim the growth. Claim even the detours, for they have shaped your strength. When you take radical responsibility, you do not carry your past as a burden. You carry it as wisdom. And wisdom, when embraced, becomes the foundation upon which a new and powerful life is built. There is a conversation happening within you every single day. It rises with you in the morning and follows you into the quiet of the night. It comments on your efforts, judges your mistakes, measures your worth, and too often that voice is harsher than any critic you have ever faced. We forgive strangers more quickly than we forgive ourselves. We extend patience to others while denying it to our own hearts. But if you are to rebuild yourself, you must first learn to speak to yourself with mercy. Mercy is not weakness. It is not lowering your standards or excusing your growth. Mercy is understanding that you are human, gloriously, imperfectly human. It is recognizing that you were learning even when you stumbled, that you were doing the best you could with the awareness you had at the time. You cannot punish yourself into becoming better. You can only love yourself into growth. Think about how gently you would hold a child who is trying and failing, trying and falling. You would not call that child useless. You would not say, you will never learn. You would encourage them. You would remind them that falling is part of walking. And yet, when you fall, you become your own harshest judge. You replay your errors. You magnify your flaws. You reduce your entire identity to one imperfect moment. That is not truth. That is cruelty disguised as discipline. Transformation does not grow in soil poisoned by self-hatred. It blooms in ground softened by compassion. When you speak kindly to yourself, you create space to try again. When you forgive yourself, you loosen the grip of shame. And when shame loosens its grip, courage finds room to breathe. You begin to take risks again. You begin to believe in possibility again. You begin to see yourself not as a failure, but as a work in progress. There will be days when you fall short of your own expectations. Days when you procrastinate, when you doubt, when you speak out of fear instead of faith. In those moments, pause. Replace the voice that says, you are not enough, with the voice that says, you are still learning. Replace. I always mess things up with, I can do better next time. These are not empty affirmations. They are seeds. And what you plant in your mind will eventually shape your reality. Self-compassion also means allowing yourself to rest, allowing yourself to grieve, allowing yourself to admit that you are tired without labeling yourself lazy. You are not a machine built for endless productivity. You are a soul navigating a complex world. Extend to yourself the same grace you so freely give to others. As you rebuild, remember this: the way you speak to yourself becomes the architecture of your future. Let your inner voice be firm but kind. Let it guide you, not shame you. Because when you treat yourself with mercy, you create a foundation strong enough to hold every dream you dare to build. There is a misunderstanding that discipline is harsh, that it is a rigid taskmaster standing over you with a list of demands. Many people hear the word and think of punishment, restriction, or relentless pressure. But true discipline, the kind that rebuilds a life, is not cruelty. It is devotion. It is the quiet, steady decision to care for your future in the present moment. It is love in action. Every time you choose to wake up a little earlier to work on your dream, you are loving the person you are becoming. Every time you say no to what distracts you and yes to what strengthens you, you are loving the life you are creating. Discipline is not about forcing yourself into exhaustion. It is about honoring your potential enough to nurture it daily. It is the bridge between who you are now and who you long to be. Daily habits may look small to the outside world. No applause follows you when you read 10 pages of a book. No spotlight shines when you choose a healthy meal, when you practice a skill, when you sit quietly to reflect instead of scrolling endlessly. But those small acts are sacred. They are quiet promises you keep to your future self. And every promise kept builds trust within you. When you break promises to yourself repeatedly, something inside begins to weaken. You start to doubt your own word. You begin to question your ability to follow through. But when you keep even the smallest commitment, when you say, I will walk for 10 minutes, and you do it, you rebuild integrity within your own spirit. You begin to see yourself as reliable, capable, strong. Discipline is not about perfection. There will be days when you miss the mark, when fatigue or fear slows you down. But love does not disappear because of one mistake. It returns the next day and tries again. That is what discipline truly is: returning. Returning to your goals, returning to your standards, returning to the vision you carry in your heart, even after you have stumbled. And understand this: discipline creates freedom. It may feel restrictive in the moment, but it frees you from regret. It frees you from the heavy weight of, I wish I had tried. It frees you from living at the mercy of impulse. When you build structure in your life, you create space for your gifts to flourish. You give your dreams a schedule instead of leaving them to chance. You do not practice discipline because you dislike yourself. You practice it because you believe you are worth the effort. You believe your dreams deserve consistency. You believe your future deserves preparation. Each focused hour, each repeated effort, each intentional choice is a declaration that you matter. So treat your habits as sacred rituals, not burdens. Let your routines be gentle but firm guardians of your growth. In every disciplined action, whisper to yourself, I am doing this because I care about who I am becoming. And over time, that care will shape a life that reflects not just ambition, but deep and abiding self-love. Comfort is a beautiful place, but it is a quiet cage. It wraps itself around you softly, tells you that you are safe, tells you that you have done enough. It whispers that there is no need to risk embarrassment, no need to risk failure, no need to step into the unfamiliar. And for a while, comfort feels like peace. But if you stay there too long, you begin to notice something stirring inside you, a restlessness, a knowing that you were made for more than what is easy. Courage does not always roar. Sometimes it trembles. Sometimes it speaks with a shaky voice and uncertain steps. Choosing courage does not mean you are fearless. It means you are willing. Willing to apply for the opportunity you feel unqualified for. Willing to leave the relationship that diminishes you. Willing to speak the truth that has been sitting heavily on your heart. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else matters more. Growth has never lived in the territory of comfort. It exists on the edge, where you feel stretched, where you feel exposed, where you are unsure of the outcome. Think about every skill you have mastered, every lesson you have truly learned. None of them were born from ease. They were born from repetition, from mistakes, from moments when you wanted to quit but chose to continue. That stretching, that tension, was not a sign to retreat. It was evidence that you were expanding. Fear will always present itself as protection. It will remind you of past disappointments. It will replay the memory of when things did not work out. It will ask, "What if you fail again?" But courage asks a different question. What if you grow? Fear focuses on the fall. Courage focuses on the flight. And every time you choose to move forward despite the uncertainty, you weaken fear's authority over your life. There will be discomfort in becoming who you are meant to be. You may outgrow old habits, old circles, even old versions of yourself. That can feel lonely at times. It can feel like standing in a space where nothing is familiar. But remember, the caterpillar must leave the certainty of crawling before it understands the miracle of wings. The transition is uncomfortable, but the transformation is worth it. Choosing courage also means forgiving yourself when you hesitate. It means understanding that bravery is built through practice. Each time you take one small step outside your comfort zone, you train your spirit to trust itself. Each time you survive what you feared, you gather proof that you are stronger than your doubts. So do not let comfort shrink your destiny. Let courage stretch it. Walk toward the thing that scares you just enough to signal growth. Speak up, try again, begin before you feel ready. Because on the other side of that trembling step is a version of you who is wiser, bolder, and more alive. And that version is waiting patiently for you to be brave enough to arrive. There is a rhythm to life that is easily missed when we spend all our time looking outward. We scroll endlessly through other people's achievements, compare ourselves to curated moments, and measure our worth against someone else's highlight reel. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, we forget the voice inside us, the one that has always wanted to create, to build, to leave something that carries our own heartbeat. To rebuild yourself, you must first choose to create before you consume. Creation is not about grand gestures. It begins with small acts of intention. It is the painting of a single brushstroke, the writing of a single sentence, the planting of a single seed. It is choosing to add to the world rather than merely taking from it. Every hour you spend making something, every thought you shape into action, strengthens the part of you that knows your life is meant to be authored by your own hands. Creation is a declaration that you matter, that your vision matters, and that your existence can leave a mark beyond yourself. When you spend too much time consuming, reading endless opinions, watching endless stories, scrolling through endless accomplishments, you risk losing your sense of direction. Your energy becomes fragmented. You start to borrow other people's dreams instead of nurturing your own. You begin to live in the echo of someone else's life rather than the resonance of your own. And in that process, your spirit grows restless, your purpose grows dim, and your potential lies dormant. Creating before consuming reverses that flow. It reclaims your agency. It reminds you that the world does not need another copy of someone else's success. It needs the original expression of who you are. It asks you to take responsibility for your time, for your imagination, for your energy. Even if what you build seems small or insignificant today, it is training you in the practice of intentional life. It is teaching you to trust yourself, to value your ideas, and to honor your unique perspective. There will be moments when creating feels vulnerable. When your work is seen by others, it may be misunderstood or criticized. That is inevitable. But remember, Consumption without creation is a life that mirrors without meaning. To consume safely is to hide. To create openly, even imperfectly, is to grow. To build before you absorb is to claim your place as a participant in life, not a spectator. As you rebuild yourself, let this become a habit. Create first, write before you scroll, speak before you listen, build before you borrow. Offer to the world the product of your imagination and labor, and let your consumption be a seasoning, not the main course. Your dreams are waiting for your hands, your heart, your courage. Feed them with your energy, feed them with your focus, and watch as a life once shaped by observation transforms into a life shaped by deliberate, fearless creation. There is a subtle power in the company you keep, in the spaces you inhabit, in the energy you allow into your life. The world is full of noise, full of voices that drain, criticize, or diminish your spirit. And if you are not careful, you will begin to absorb that energy without realizing it. That is why it is essential in the work of rebuilding yourself to surround yourself with light. Not light in the literal sense, though sunlight is a blessing. Light in the sense of presence, in the sense of inspiration, in the sense of nourishment for your heart and mind. The people you spend time with leave footprints on your soul. They shape your thinking, your mood, your confidence. When you are around those who see your potential, who celebrate your victories, who encourage your growth, you begin to believe in possibilities that once felt impossible. Conversely, when you are around those who belittle, dismiss, or drain you, your spirit shrinks. Surrounding yourself with light means choosing relationships that uplift, challenge, and guide you, not relationships that weigh you down. It means intentionally seeking those who reflect the best of humanity and remind you of your own worth. It is not just people who provide light, it is also the ideas and words you absorb, the books you read, the music you listen to, the podcasts you allow to echo in your mind. These are the nutrients of your inner life. Surround yourself with words that encourage, challenge, and awaken you. Seek wisdom that stretches your imagination, that expands your understanding, that nurtures your dreams. Fill your mind with narratives of courage, resilience, and hope. Let your thoughts be fed by the light of knowledge, creativity, and truth. Your environment matters too. The spaces you occupy, your home, your workplace, even the corners of your mind, reflect the energy you carry. A cluttered, dark, or chaotic environment can mirror and amplify doubt and despair. A space of order, warmth, and inspiration can remind you of the beauty of life and the possibilities that await. Surround yourself with spaces that honor your growth, that spark your creativity, that invite peace and focus. Light is not always literal, but it is always transformative. Surrounding yourself with light is not a luxury, it is a discipline. It requires awareness and intention. It asks you to notice who and what dims your spirit and to have the courage to step away. It asks you to seek and embrace what nurtures you, even when it requires effort, change, or discomfort. It asks you to understand that your energy is sacred, that your spirit is precious, and that the rebuilding of yourself depends on the quality of light you allow in. When you fill your life with light, with people who inspire, words that empower, spaces that calm, you create an environment where growth is inevitable. You fortify your heart against negativity, you ignite your imagination, and you create a life in which hope, creativity, and resilience flourish. Light becomes both your shield and your guide. Life will not always go as planned. You will stumble, you will falter, you will face moments when it feels as though the ground beneath you has vanished. And in those moments, it is easy to believe that falling is the end, that a mistake, a failure, or a heartbreak defines you forever. But the truth is far different. Falling is not a defeat, it is an invitation. It is a chance to rise, to gather strength from the very weight that tried to keep you down, and to prove to yourself that resilience is not about being flawless, but about choosing to stand again. Each fall carries a lesson, though sometimes it is hidden beneath the sting of disappointment. When you fall, do not rush past it. Do not ignore the pain. Look at it, feel it, understand it. Ask yourself what it is teaching you about your strength, your courage, your priorities. Falling is not a reflection of weakness. It is evidence that you are trying, that you are daring to live fully, that you are stepping into spaces that challenge you. The fall itself becomes a teacher, and each time you learn, you rise with more wisdom than before. Rising is not immediate. There will be moments when your knees ache, when your heart trembles, when your spirit doubts. It may take time to stand, to gather yourself, to find your footing, and that is okay. Resilience is not measured by how quickly you recover, but by your refusal to remain down. It is the quiet determination to face your circumstances, to shake off despair, and to move forward, even if the first steps are small. Every time you rise, you rebuild not only your body and mind, but your confidence, your courage, and your faith in yourself. Do not fear the fall, for it is part of the journey of becoming. The most powerful, enduring growth often comes after what feels like the deepest failure. When you rise after a fall, you demonstrate to yourself that nothing external, no loss, no rejection, no mistake, has the power to define your worth. You reclaim your narrative. You assert that you are larger than the sum of your setbacks. Each rise is a victory, a proof of your ability to endure, to adapt, and to thrive. And remember, rising is not a solitary act. Support may come from friends who believe in you, from mentors who guide you, or from the quiet encouragement of your own inner voice. Let every hand extended, every word of hope, and every reminder of your inner strength bolster you. But ultimately, rising comes from within, the decision each time to say, I will try again. I will not be defeated. I will keep moving forward. So when you fall, and you will, because that is life, do not be discouraged. Do not shrink in fear. Stand even if slowly. Stand even if trembling. Stand even if the path ahead is uncertain. For resilience is not perfection. It is not the absence of failure. It is the unshakable choice, again and again, to rise. And in rising, you discover the depth of your courage, the strength of your spirit, and the limitless potential of who you are becoming, reminding you at every step that even in darkness, you are meant to shine.